So next I want to walk you through a real-life example of how our analysts used Moloch in an incident. So this will hopefully, for any of you who are not familiar with Moloch or don't use Moloch every day, this will give you a little bit more insight into how we actually use it here at Verizon Media. So we got an alert. This all started from a Crowdstrike alert about a box using a shell script. That's the shell script up top. Please note the local IP and the remote IP. These will be valuable in the future. And so our analysts saw this and they wanted to start investigating, obviously. And so one of the easiest ways to investigate an incident like this is to actually go to Moloch and to start looking for this time range for these IPs, and in this instance, the go-pear.phar file is what they wanted to look for. So first, they went into Moloch, and they're going to search for the IP from the Crowdstrike alert. They wanted to make sure that it was only this one local IP that reached out to this remote IP. So they started that way. So the analyst goes to Moloch. As I showed you earlier, we have this awesome drop-down of values. And they started creating this search for that destination IP to see what other local IPs might have reached out to it, just to make sure that that Crowdstrike alert only alerted on that one, to make sure that that was valid. So we auto-complete values as well, and that helps, again, with that search expression to create a really useful query as quickly as possible. So here, great. We only have that one session. So that means only one session reached out to that remote IP in that particular time range. So next, the analyst is probably going to want to dive further into this. They're going to pivot on that source IP to find that session where the go-pear.phar file was downloaded. So each field value has a drop-down menu of options. We're going to use that new pivot feature that I talked about earlier to pivot on this source IP. And we filtered over 121 billion results to just 317 entries, but that's still too many to search for. So we're probably going to want to narrow it down, and we know that go-pear.phar download is a very large download. So let's look for only large downloads. And look, we've got our hit. So this is the URI we're looking for. So this is the session we're going to dive into. So let's go ahead and dive further. We're going to open the session to view the metadata and the packets for this session. As I showed you earlier, you click the little plus button on the left to open that session. And so this session contains details about all the metadata that we captured. We have a general section and then the HTTP section. And then if you go down further, you're going to see the packets. And I'm not going to bore you with looking through all the packets, so I'm going to jump straight down to the meat. And the analyst found this weird encoded part. So something's going on here. This is not what we expect from this download. So maybe there's something bad going on. The fire team did some forensics. They downloaded this file. They finally reached out to the PAIR team and said, hey, this is a bad download. And they were acknowledged in this tweet that indeed they did find a bad download, and the PAIR team alerted everyone in the community about it. Next, the analysts wanted to find the last good download we had on our network for the go-pear.phar file. So to do that, they went ahead and added that as a search expression to the query. They removed the source IP and ran another search. And they're going to use those awesome buttons I talked about earlier to go to about a week. So seeing if we can find a good download before this last bad one. So we have another go-pear.phar download. Let's open it up. And if you scroll down and view the packets, let's go down to the good part. This is what we expect. This is not oddly encoded. This is not something malicious. This is the last good download we were able to verify on our network for this file. So the FHIR team, again, reached out to the PAIR team and said, hey, we found our last good download, so that other analysts could narrow down their search on other networks for specific timeframes for that tainted file. So this is just one good example about how our analysts use Moloch every day to respond to incidents and find issues on our network. Any questions about this example? Awesome. Oh, question here.
Yep, there you go.
The 104 IP address that was your destination, geographically, did you identify where that was coming from?
You can. So there was probably some data about that. I'm not sure if it was in this example, but yes, you can find, if you narrow it down, let's look and see. If you look at the map up on the top right, that's where we show the country of origin. So let's see. So looks like it was from the United States in this example.
Okay. We have some systems that we use where we get our data from Suricata and we run it into Splunk. And one of the decorations that they put on it when it goes into Splunk is they look up the, they look up the country of origin in the GeoIP database. And then we have alert rules that go back and say, do we have data traffic going to a country where Verizon has no offices?
Oh, okay. Right? Yeah. Good use case.
So it also shows, it's a little fuzzy right now, but it also shows below the IPs, the countries. So it says US and US there. And I mean, we're using MaxMind to look things up. And if you pay for the I don't know if they call it the Pro, but the pay version, the subscription version, you get the more accurate. Otherwise, it works with the free version of MaxMind.
Awesome. Thank you.